Barnaby Jones debuted on CBS as a mid-season replacement in 1973. The detective series starred Buddy Ebsen as the titular investigator who, with the help of his widowed daughter-in-law, Betty Jones, played by Lee Meriweather, ran a private detective firm in L.A. It was the brainchild of TV legend Quinn Martin, the man behind hit dramas like The FBI, The Fugitive, The Invaders, Cannon, and The Streets of San Francisco. The series wasn't expected to be a huge hit, but it ran for 178 episodes over 8 seasons. Join Factsverse as we try to get to the bottom of just how and why Barnaby Jones eventually came to an end. It was supposed to be a spin-off of Cannon. Initially, the plan was for the Barnaby Jones pilot episode to be aired as an episode of Cannon. Barnaby would then be presented to the audience as a direct spin-off of that series. It was eventually decided, however, just to air the pilot independently. That being said, in the first episode, Requiem for a Son, Cannon's William Conrad guest starred as Detective Frank Cannon. So technically, Barnaby Jones still takes place in the same TV universe as that series. There was later another Cannon crossover in the 1975 two-part episode, The Deadly Conspiracy. Richard Nixon was a huge fan of the show. According to an article published in the Milwaukee Journal in 1984, former President Richard Nixon wanted to join the Barnaby Jones fan club called the Barnaby Jones Luncheon Club. On one occasion, Ebsen ran into Nixon in Palm Springs. The disgraced former POTUS apparently started gushing about how he'd seen every episode of the series and could quote just about every line. Ebsen subsequently wrote the fan club's president, Jourdain Thomas, requesting that Nixon be made a member. But it's never been revealed whether or not Tricky Dick was made an official member of the club. Before we tell you more about Barnaby Jones, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. A Beverly Hills crossover was planned. The idea was a crossover episode would be developed between the two series where Ebsen would portray both Barnaby Jones and Jed Clampett. The proposed pilot script never materialized, so its potential plot remains a mystery. But the little we do know implies that in the episode, we would have seen Jones coming to the rescue of Jed in some way. Though that crossover didn't happen, Ebsen did make an appearance as Barnaby Jones in the 1993 Beverly Hillbillies film. His brief cameo was pretty fun to see, regardless of the fact that the film was a massive flop. Composer Jerry Goldsmith hated the pilot. Principal conductor of the London Symphony Orchestra, Andre Previn, was the producer's first pick to compose the Barnaby Jones theme song, but he turned down the gig. After seeing the pilot episode, veteran film and TV composer Jerry Goldsmith tried desperately to get out of having to score the series, even though he had already signed on to do so. From what he had seen, Goldsmith found the show pretty abysmal. Granted, this was an opinion shared by many critics at the time as well. Despite his reservations, Goldsmith was convinced to set his feelings aside and write the theme song and score the pilot anyway. In the end, Barnaby Jones ended up running longer than any of his other series, with the lone exception being The Waltons. Keeping it in the family. Buddy Ebsen's daughter, Bonnie Ebsen, appeared in the series 6 times. Her first 3 appearances were bit parts. For her 4th and 5th appearances, she was given top billing. And for her final appearance, she was billed as the special guest star. Lee Meriweather's daughter, Kyle Aletter, likewise appeared on the show twice as a guest star. Additionally, executive producer Quinn Martin's daughter Jill appeared 3 times as a guest star. But the most notable example of someone's family member appearing on the show was producer Leo Penn's son, Sean Penn. That appearance marked the esteemed actor's screen debut. Ebsen struggled to keep up with the pace of filming. After Buddy Ebsen expressed a desire to take a step back from the series due to his advancing age, J.R. Jones, played by Mark Shera, was added to the cast. In addition, Shera and Meriweather were given increased focus. Ebsen was 64 years old when the series premiered, and he had a very long commute each day to the studio from his Valley home. Crew members would often catch Ebsen taking naps on set. Sometimes he'd fall asleep in his car or while standing up. Unlike some other flashier sets, the Barnaby Jones set was fairly quiet, without much going on when the cameras weren't rolling. Director of photography William W. Spencer recalled that Ebsen always seemed to know when a scene was ready to shoot. He'd wake up automatically and immediately jump into character. During the last 2 seasons, episodes were divided evenly between Shera and Meriweather and Buddy Ebsen. Ratings briefly went up in the 6th and 7th season after Shera was added to the cast, but they nosedived during the 8th season. The series was ultimately canceled in 1980 due to lackluster ratings. Ebsen had also grown tired of playing the role and wanted to move on. After Barnaby Jones was canceled, reruns began airing in syndication. In 2015, Visual Entertainment released Barnaby Jones: The Complete Series on DVD. Beginning in September 2019, MeTV began airing Barnaby Jones reruns. Where the cast are today. Although Ebsen had expressed the desire to step away from acting, he went on to appear in the ABC drama Matt Houston, playing the lead's uncle Roy Houston during the series' third season. He later narrated a documentary series called Disney Family Album on the Disney Channel and made a final guest starring appearance in a 1994 episode of Burke's Law. Ebsen died of respiratory failure on July 6, 2003 at age 95. 3 years later, a Barnaby Jones novel that Ebsen had penned, titled Sizzling Cold Case, was published. It wasn't the only book Ebsen published either, as late in his life he wrote a handful of books ranging from romance to mystery. Lee Meriweather went on to have a recurring role as the character Ruth Martin in the daytime soap All My Children. Since that series ended in 2011, Meriweather has continued to work on stage, on TV, and in feature films. She recently made appearances in shows like Hawaii Five-0, Desperate Housewives, The League, and Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23. At age 87, she has pretty much retired from acting, though she still makes occasional appearances at fan conventions. Mark Shera never quite found success like on Barnaby Jones, but he did make numerous guest appearances on shows like The Love Boat, Murder, She Wrote, Dragnet, and Beverly Hills 90210. He's now 72 and has been retired since 2002. Actor John Carter had the recurring role of Police Lieutenant John Biddle. He appeared in films like Scarface, Worth Winning, and The Hoax. Carter passed away from pneumonia on May 23, 2015 at age 87. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you remember watching Barnaby Jones? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content. By the way, if you haven't joined Facts First as a member yet, be sure to look below this video and click the join button. By becoming a paid member of Facts First, you'll get access to exclusive video content that you won't find anywhere else. This includes some of our more mature content that isn't suitable for public audiences, which includes topics like Hollywood actresses who posed for Playboy and some of the steamiest moments in movie history. Plus, you can enjoy these videos completely ad-free. Our biggest fans will notice they also get badges next to their name when they leave comments on our videos. We pay special attention to comments from our members, and so do other viewers. So if you want exclusive content from Facts First or inside access to discussions with other community members, click the join button to get started for just $4.99. There are hours of members-only videos waiting for you, with new videos added every month. And we're actively working on bringing even more features to help fans like you connect with other members and get more of your favorite content. Just click join, and we'll see you inside the membership tab.